Hello, everyone. I'm Kirsten.
And I'm Megan. And together,
we're Ex Mormon Snark. On this channel, we are trading testimonies for truth bombs.
And we're going to serve up all of the Ex Mormon tea, plus a little coffee, tobacco, alcohol, and a side of snark. We decided that we were going to start with the very beginning because Mormonism is a lot. And Kirsten and I spent our entire lives in the church until recently. Well, me more recent than you. How long have you been out, Kirsten?
About 12 years, I believe. So I officially stopped going about 12 years ago, but I removed myself, wrote the letter, all of the things about 9 years ago. So it has been a while, but yeah.
So you were well into adulthood when you finally left the church. Yes. And I was as well. I left the church. Well, I stopped going during the pandemic. I just never went back after that, but I didn't resign officially until about 2.5 years ago. And yeah, I was well into my adult years. I was a temple attending, gospel doctrine teaching, seminary graduate, did all the things except for getting married in the temple, which Kirsten did do.
I did. It's very exciting. That's going to make some really great stories to share with everyone because it was an experience, to say the least.
Yeah. So I got married to a Nevermo who then joined the church and was active for all of about 4 months or so before he was like, no, this is not for me. So throughout our 22-year marriage, I dragged my 6 kids to church by myself pretty much every single Sunday. I was very faithful attender. At the peak of my Mormondom, I was going to the temple once a week and attending church and doing all of my callings, which sometimes I had as many as 4 at a time. So yeah, we were deep into Mormonism, and I'm a 7th generation Mormon, and Kirsten is kind of Mormon royalty, you guys.
Yeah, whatever at least 7 is, I'm talking, I had ancestors that were right there next to Joe, doing all of the things, setting the church up. There are journals from my grandparents in the archives that are both some on display, some not, but to say the least, my family is very much still in the church. All of my living relatives, as far as I know, are still in the church. So to say I'm the black sheep would probably be an understatement. You do what you got to do. I mean, at this point in my life, Megan and I are just ready to talk about the truth, to stop hiding behind trying to stay away from hurting people's feelings and really expose what is going on, because we personally have seen a lot of hurt being done. And also, we really want to educate people who are maybe investigating the church, whether you're in the church fully, you're recently left the church, or maybe you just want to learn a little bit more about Mormonism. That's where we want to educate and show what's going on within the history books, all of those things.
Even for the Nevermos who have never been Mormon, but you're just super curious about Mormonism, because Mormonism's having a moment right now, at least in the United States. I can't even count how many Mormon reality shows and documentaries and all of that. Mormons are in the news all the time right now. Unfortunately, a lot of it is because they're, true crime cases. But there's also just a lot between Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. There's a lot to talk about. So a lot more people are getting exposed to Mormonism than have been in the past. And I think that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is actually a corporation, actually it's a collection of corporations, and we'll talk all about that. But I think that people in general have always viewed the Mormon Church as like these super nice people who live in Utah with the big temples and everything. But it seems like nowadays that Mormons are getting some bad press. And so we are here to confirm the rumors because most of what is said about the church is true. And I'm not talking about, the truth claims of the church, which I believe personally are not true. Where do you stand on that, Kirsten?
They are, let me choose my words. Okay.
Why? Why should you start now?
Right.
Well, I'm just going to come out and be a lot more brutal than you are. And I'm just going to say Joseph Smith made it up. Like 100% of it came from the mind and imagination of Joseph Smith. And if you look at everything in Mormonism from that lens, it makes so much more sense.
Yes. I thought we were talking more of like what they put on the website, you know, with their little articles or whatever. So sorry.
Right. No, you're good.
I'm sorry. It's bullshit. Can I say bullshit, or do you need me to say a different word?
Nope. I mean, once we're about 5 minutes in, you can go ahead and say the real word.
I'm like, you can edit that, right?
I can, but why would I? It's so perfect.
Okay. So truth claims, absolutely not. Okay. Like, he definitely made it up.
Yeah.
So sorry. I thought we were talking more about the like apologetic stuff on the website. That's what I meant by like things being skewed and being like, okay, well, this is more of what happened, you know, blah, 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 because that's history and whatever. No, Joseph Smith, if the truth claim is that Joseph Smith saw God and Jesus Christ and found gold plates in his practical backyard and moved a stone, no, that is all made up. Just the way like any other story or lie can be made up. I mean, he might as well have said he went to Harry Potter land and he was also a wizard. Like, that's how I feel about it. And I'm sure there's lots of people that, you know, want to believe that Hogwarts is real and they're going to get their letter one day. Yeah. So that's where I stand on that. I'm
still waiting for my letter, actually.
Anyway. I'm such a good wizard. I would be good, I promise.
You'd be making polyjuice potion every other day. Come on.
You're like, yes, I am, in fact, this person. Tell me all of your secrets.
Oh, man. So we decided that we would start at the beginning so that people can know the real story of Joseph Smith and not the whitewashed version, not the whitewashed version that you're going to get from the LDS.org website, which I don't even think they have LDS.org anymore. You know what? It's churchofjesuschrist.org now. Did you know that?
Really?
Yeah.
See, this I don't know, because every single time I got like an ad or a pop-up or anything from the church, I would do the extra step that's like, I don't want to see these ads anymore. And I blocked all of them. So when people talk about the church ads and everything, I haven't seen one in literally years. So I have no clue.
You know what's ironic is that when we will do family night on my channel, people will tell me that they get ads for the LDS Church during my videos.
Of course they do.
I'm like, let's talk about this. This is not good placement here.
No.
It's probably because
you might hate them, but you might like us. Like, just hear the other side.
Right. Right. And we're here to tell you all the things the missionaries won't tell you, because there's a lot that they don't tell you.
And to be fair, I think, and this is my personal opinion, that they don't tell you because a lot of times they don't know. I mean, I personally have heard stories of missionaries that teach what they were taught to teach and don't find out until later the actual truth in the history and are very bothered by it. So,
right. I've known a lot of people who go out on their mission and it's actually someone investigating the church who will ask them a question and they'll be like, what? By the way, we're not supposed to call them investigators anymore. Now they're friends.
What?
Yeah, there's a whole list of vocabulary that's changing. The church has removed all of the Moroni's from maps and their crosses now. They are really trying to whitewash the image of the church.
Well, I did know one of my friends that has recently left the church said that they're making like Facebook groups for investigators or friends, whatever they're called now. Right. That has no mention of Mormonism on it, but then like invites you to come to church and like never mentions that it's Mormonism. So that to me is insane. It's literally like catfishing people to come to the LDS Church.
That's entrapment. Wow. That it's kind of like a few years ago when they would say that they were just teaching English lessons. They would go to a foreign country and they would say, "How would you like to have a free English lesson, free English classes?" You know, and then they would say, "Come to church with us," and people were not having it. So I think it stopped being. So they have to keep coming up with these catfishing schemes. It's crazy. So anyway, probably one of the best biographies ever written of Joseph Smith was written by Fawn Brody. And she passed away in 1981. She was a historian and she taught at the University of, she was a professor of history at the University of California, Los Angeles, so UCLA. So this book, let me see, when is the copyright?
I'm assuming before 1981, huh?
Probably. Otherwise, it might be a little dubious that she actually wrote it. No, actually, the Mormons don't like this book.
That's true. I remember being told specifically not to read it.
Right. I was told that too. And so I didn't read it until right before I resigned from the church. And this was one of the things that kind of solidified it for me, you know, reading about Joseph Smith's upbringing and sort of the time and the era that he was in that part of the country and things people believed back then that, you know, sort of dovetailed with the Book of Mormon. I was going to say something else. I can't remember what it was.
Sorry.
What did you say right before I said that?
That I was told not to read it?
Oh, yes. And in fact, there was a rebuttal book called No Ma'am, That's Not History.
Oh my God.
I want to see who wrote it. It was one of the
It sounds like something
general
I would
authorities. Right?
No, not really. Wow. I mean, I knew that there were things that did rebut it, like, I don't know if word for word or chapter by chapter or something, but I just remember being told specifically not to read it and that it was something that was written as like a smear campaign, basically, against Joseph Smith and the church.
Yeah, exactly. So it will not surprise you to learn that Hugh Nibley is the one who wrote that book.
Oh,
It's the full title. The full title is called No Ma'am, That's Not History, a brief review of Mrs. Brodie's reluctant vindication of a prophet she seeks to expose. So her book was written in 1945, and this rebuttal was written in 1946 as a Mormon apologetic, basically.
I mean, and that's very on brand for Hugh Nibley, if anybody knows anything about him.
Yeah. And basically, like the theme or the review of that book argues that Fawn Brodie's book inadvertently supported Joseph Smith's prophetic claims, despite her intent to try and debunk them.
I'm sorry.
So
I mean, this is kind of the whole reason that we're doing this, because it's literally the tap dance they do to try and like make other people look foolish when it's just history. It blows my mind. And I think right there are things that can show like for proof that this is a cult or cult mentality or, you know, whatever. I said what I said. Like, that's exactly what brainwashing cults do, that are like, actually, you know, like,
yeah, they try. And the thing that I think is really hilarious is that the Mormon leadership has no idea how foolish other people think they are. They think that they're just so well respected in the religious community. But the fact is that most people outside of Mormonism do believe that Mormonism is a cult. And most other Christian religions do not believe that Mormonism is a Christian religion.
Right. Yeah.
So there's that. So I thought we would just start with the introduction to this book, and we'll summarize all the chapters. Now, this book is still available, but there's no audiobook version of it, which a lot of people have asked for that. And we can't read it word for word without violating copyright laws. So we're not going to read it word for word, but we're going to summarize each chapter with quotes from it so that you can go chapter by chapter, so you don't have to read the whole book. And then as a bonus, you get our snark along with it.
Which is always fun.
It's fun for us. I don't know if anybody else cares.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, does anyone really think that I'm funnier than I think I am?
I don't know. I think you're pretty funny. So otherwise, we wouldn't be friends.
Right? Exactly. I don't have time for this.
Be like, Kirsten, you're not funny. Don't call me anymore.
That sounds right. Sorry. Sorry about that.
Okay, so this is just the preface to the book today. It's going to be a little shorter of an episode, but this is going to really set the stage for what we're working with here. So these are Fawn Brody's words in the preface of No Man Knows My History. And Kirsten's never read this book. And so I'm so excited for her real-time reaction.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, I'm sure.
All right, well, here we go. It was in a funeral sermon that the Mormon prophet flung a challenge to his future biographers. To an audience of 10,000 in his bewitching city of Nauvoo, Joseph Smith said on April 7th, 1844, quote, "You don't know me. You never knew my heart. No man knows my history. I cannot tell it. I shall never undertake it. I don't blame anyone for not believing my history. If I had not experienced what I have, I could not have believed it myself." So to me, this quote is Joseph Smith literally saying, none of this is true.
Right? Like, there's no way you'll ever know.
Yeah. So he said this in 1844. So by this time, Mormonism was founded in 1830. They moved from New York to Ohio to Illinois. They were driven out of Missouri, and they built the city of Nauvoo, which was, 10,000 people is a big city for 1844. And they basically, Joseph Smith declared himself, well, first of all, he was the mayor. He was the leader of the militia. He was the judge, I think, also. And then, no, he wasn't a judge. Anyway, he held all of the top positions. And then he declared himself king of the world.
Yes.
King of the world. Let that just soak in for a second. And he was also running for president.
Yes. Yeah.
So if that's not proof that Mormons were trying to take over the world, I don't know. I don't know what is. I don't know what to tell you.
It's very interesting that he believed he had that power and that people backed him up on it. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's one thing I've always thought about. Like, I know people are like, oh, the king, in England, it's by God, the right or whatever. But like, I don't know. I would think being in the United States and like understanding everything they've gone through with the Civil War, or not Civil War, excuse me, Revolutionary War, and like not wanting to have kings and stuff. And then the first guy that's like, well, maybe not the first, but this guy who's like, I've seen God and I'm going to be the king. And they're like, that sounds right.
Right. Exactly. Whereas like today, if somebody started a little movement and people started driving them out of towns because they were breaking laws, because that's what Joseph Smith was actually doing. And we can get into the fact that I didn't know any of the crimes that he was charged with until I left the church, because what I was always told is that they hated the Mormons because they were so prosperous and they only wanted to do business with other Mormons. And so they would trump up all these charges against Joseph Smith and throw him in prison, and he always got released. Well, that's not freaking true. No, lots of times he was getting thrown into prison because he beat somebody up. Like, he was a violent person. Yeah. And so one of these episodes, we'll have to go through all of his court cases, because he was convicted several times and had to pay fines and things like that. So there's a lot to get into.
And there is a picture that we will need to share at some point, if I can find it. So I'm pretty sure I still have it, of some of my family members and other higher ups in the church actually in jail. They're in their black and whites, sitting in front of the jail. after being arrested for, I was always told it was polygamy, but actually I need to double check and see what they were arrested for. But,
yeah, it was polygamy. It was like during the Utah War when the federal government had to come in and tell people to stop practicing polygamy. They had made it against the law, and my ancestor is in that picture as well. So we'll have to pull that picture up and compare ancestors.
That picture was hanging in my grandmother's house for the entire time that I knew her to live in that house. She's since passed, but it was a 16 by 20. It was huge.
Wow.
And it was like something that they were very proud of.
Yes, exactly. So it's September 17th, 2025. Charlie Kirk was just shot last week by a Mormon, former Mormon, wasn't practicing, but was raised Mormon. And the church came out with this statement like immediately after it happened that said that they reject lawlessness, but they've been lawless their entire existence. They literally left the country so that they could practice polygamy, which is marrying more than one wife, because it wasn't allowed in the United States. And then when they became a state, they were like, okay, but you have to stop polygamy. And they were like, cool, we will. And then the government was like, no, for real this time. And they're like, all right, we're really going to stop it now. And then they sent people to Canada and Mexico to practice polygamy. And then when Reed Smoot became a senator or was about to become a senator, they had all these hearings and they made him answer, are you guys still practicing polygamy? And he was like, definitely not. Hey, they want you guys to stop for real or else they're not going to make me a senator. So knock it off.
Seriously, like we have to stop.
Like for real this time, for real. And then, fast forward a few years, and this was just a couple years ago, that the corporation of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was fined $5 million for making fake shell companies and filing false papers with the SEC.
Well, before that, Megan, they got in trouble too with like civil rights and everything because they were excluding people of color from having the priesthood and going into the temple. And literally, God changed his mind suddenly to let them have it when they were threatened with having their a nonprofit tax exempt status revoked. Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word for a second. But when they were
that in 1978 God changed his mind about Black people.
So
I wonder if that'll get a copyright strike.
It was less than 20 seconds. It's fine.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All right. So back to No Man Knows My History. This is what these episodes are going to be like. Tangent, rabbit hole, and a little bit of, the same topic. Okay. So she talks about other people who have tried to write biographies about Joseph Smith. And she says, in official Mormon biographies, he's been made a prophet of greater stature than Moses. 19th century preachers have made him a lecherous rogue, and 20th century chroniclers have been bemused with what they diagnosed as paranoid delusions.
Oh,
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
Joseph Smith dared to found a new religion in the age of printing. When he said, "Thus saith the Lord," the words were copied down by secretaries and congealed forever into print.
Well, how do you think they felt being called secretaries? Just saying.
They were men, though. So they were men secretaries. Yeah.
Was that allowed, or was this like Mad Men yet? Do they want to be called that? I guess Mad Men was like the 50s and 60s, so I think we're good.
But also like, there's like the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense and that shit. So, Anyway. She goes on to say there are few men, however, who have written so much and told so little about themselves.
I love that.
Yeah. To search in his 6-volume autobiography for the inner springs of his character is to come away baffled. The reason is partly that he dictated all of it to secretaries as the official history of the church. Yeah. His story is the antithesis of a confession.
Yeah.
Legend has it that shortly before his death, he put all his private records into a great copper pot and ordered William Huntington to bury them deeper than a plow's furrow in some obscure corner of Nauvoo. But even if those should miraculously come to light, which I don't think they will,
Right.
it's doubtful if they would be any more self-searching than the records already published. For Joseph Smith, like most great natural leaders, seldom wrote or spoke except with an audience in mind. This fact is what makes it so difficult to evaluate his own account of his adolescent life, which was written 2 decades afterward at the height of his career. And do you think he might have maybe whitewashed it a little bit?
You think? I mean, think of how many books we have now by highly narcissistic individuals who try to make their life look better than it actually was, whether it be, I mean, how many times have people come out that said in this biography, they said they did this, this, and this, and it turns out like they never got that degree or they never went to that school or, so yeah, especially if they didn't have any fact checking going by back then.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Back in the 1820s and 30s, there wasn't a whole lot of fact checking going on.
Because why would someone lie? That's what they were thinking.
Yeah. It goes on to say, and the later years of his journal, in which he wrote repeated denials of polygamy, are no less troublesome, for after his death, a dozen women proudly signed affidavits that he had taken them as wives. And now we know it was around 40 women that he had as plural wives.
That's definitely something we need to dive into. I mean, it's insane. Not only the number of wives, but the number of young or underage women, which I know a lot of people have heard about, but it's definitely something I want to talk more about and talk about these women's journals because it's really, really sad.
Yeah. Very troubling. It goes on to say, during his short, tumultuous career, Joseph was hauled into court more than a score of times on charges varying from disturbing the peace to treason. Many of the court records are also extant. Thus, it's not that documents are lacking, it's rather that they're fiercely contradictory, and even more important, that they're scattered from Vermont to California. And all of the different states had different ways of keeping court records back then, so we don't have all of them, but what we do have is pretty revealing.
Yeah, to say the least.
So she goes on to talk about the idea that Mormonism was supposed to be to Christianity what Christianity was to Judaism, like a complete reform and just a new idea. And then she says, but the story of Joseph Smith is more than the story of a new religion. If one were unscrupulously selective in choosing details, one could make him out to be not only a prophet, but also a political menace, a dictator complete with army, propaganda, ministry, and secret police who created an authoritarian dominion on the American frontier. It is easy to match his unscientific racial theories, his autocratic organization, and his boundless ambition with the theories, organizations, and ambitions of modern dictators. But to be content with drawing such parallels is to reject history for yellow journalism. And then she talks about he bucked tradition with his concepts of marriage and property ownership and all of that. And then she talks about the fact that he destroyed a printing press that was printing truth about him. He said it was lies. But then she said that's what precipitated his lynching. Now, this is curious to me because he was not hanged, he was shot. But there have been a couple of papers recently that have like echoed this idea of lynching. So I don't know if it had sort of a different connotation back then. But it basically goes on to say the cornerstone of Joseph's metaphysics was that virile concept which pervaded the whole American spirit and which was indeed the noblest ideal of Jesus and Buddha, that man is capable of eternal progress towards perfection. And I think that is descriptive of Mormonism because the whole, men can become gods theory. And that's another thing we're going to have to dig into.
And get your own planet. I mean, which is pretty exciting.
It is pretty exciting.
I have a lot of thoughts about that. So that'll be a fun episode.
Yeah. So then she quotes the couplet that Joseph Smith wrote, Adam fell that men might be, and men are that they might have joy.
Yeah.
And for Joseph Smith, joy came not from melancholy contemplation, but from planning bigger and better cities, building bigger and nobler temples, and creating for himself the nucleus of an American empire. And I would say that legacy continues today as the LDS Church continues to build temples all over the world, even though they don't have enough members to staff those temples. But with $300 billion, what else are you going to do but buy a bunch of land and build a bunch of $50 million buildings?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you and I have kind of talked about this, but it's as true as it is when I very first said it, that with the SEC getting involved, they're now buying up real estate to kind of mitigate some of those funds or charges or, whatever it is. That's kind of where they've decided to put more funds to, I don't know, hide it. I don't know. They're just
right. We're never gonna get done with this.
No.
Okay, so this is the last paragraph in the introduction, and then we're good. It says the source of his power lay not in his doctrine, but in his person, and the rare quality of his genius was due not to his reason, but to his imagination. He was a myth maker of prodigious talent, and after 100 years, and now almost 200, the myths he created are still an energizing force in the lives of 1 million followers. Now, the church is going to claim that they have 17 million, but we know that there are probably only around 4.5 million active believing members.
Yeah.
We can talk about how they keep your name on the rolls till you're 110 later.
Yes.
The moving power of Mormonism was a fable, one that few converts stopped to question, for its meaning seemed profound and its inspiration was contagious. And then might I also add to that, as I said before, they literally had to leave the country. Many people died along the way for what they believed. And by the time they got to the desert and scratched out their livelihoods, they couldn't believe that it was not true. It had to be true, because otherwise all those lives lost were for nothing. They had moved away from their homes and families for nothing. And they were in this little isolated bubble in Utah by themselves for so long before any outsiders really came in. And so that's why so many Mormons still believe what they believe, is because they stayed entrenched in that community. And my family members never left for the most part. My grandmother's house is less than 3 miles away from the statue that was erected by her ancestor that founded the town she lives in or lived in.
Yeah.
And so even her children, only one of them moved out of Utah. And in my generation, there are 24 cousins on my mom's side, and there's only one other that had left the church by the time I left the church.
Yeah. I mean, my family is very similar, and there is a lot to say about people giving up so much that they have to double down and triple down and make sure what they're doing is for a cause, because otherwise it will mentally mess you up that you've given up so much for something that isn't true.
Yes.
I've seen a lot of friends and family that will say, if it's not true, look at all the horrible things that have happened. Or if it's not true, look at all that was given up. Like, it has to be true. And that's their reasoning behind it. And it truly is like a traumatic thing. Your mind has to protect you from looking at the truth for what it is, because there is so much pain there. If you realize that you've been doing all of this, or other people have, or the pioneers, or, whatever you want to say, so many people have given up so much for this lie that your brain can't go there mentally, which is also why so many people that leave the church have such a hard time for an extended period of time. I know I did. You and I have kind of talked about, there is a lot of hurt coming to that point of understanding that it was all made up and lies. But there's also a huge amount of freedom when you decide to go down that path and unburden yourself with all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And I can say, it's the worst existential crisis in the world, because it's not just a religion. It's your entire worldview. Like Mormonism, it's not like most religions where you go to church on Sunday and you say some prayers from time to time. Like it encompasses your entire life. And, everything that you know and believe about the world and about the life after this and all of that has to come like completely tumbling down. And it's like having, it's like having a house that you built yourself burn to the ground. It's that traumatic. It really is. And for a lot of people, it takes a long time to get out of it. And I'll even say there are a lot of people who have left the church who haven't done that deconstruction work. They just, and I was in that spot for a long time. After I got divorced in 2017, I came to the conclusion that like Mormonism just doesn't work for me. I'll never be in the celestial kingdom. It's all true, but I just don't fit in that little box. And so, I'll be all right in the telestial kingdom. I'll be okay. I got to that place, and that's where I lived for a really long time, until I started allowing myself to look at whether this thing was actually true or not.
Yeah. So I definitely had a different experience in that. We've talked about this a little bit. As I grew up, I kind of always saw what I considered plot holes. And, they say, put it on the shelf, put it on the shelf, put it on the shelf, and I guess I kind of put everything on the shelf, so to speak, but I definitely revisited it, I think, more than other true believing Mormons. And what really motivated me to fully leave and resign from the church was my children. I just kept thinking, I don't want my kids to be baptized into this. I don't want them to have the life that I had. And if I don't want it for my children, why am I still here? And so that's really what made me leave. Because I kept thinking there's no way in hell I'm going to raise my children in this religion. So if I don't want my children to have it, I don't want it for myself. Like I would want better for myself because I want better for my children. Almost kind of that, like being the parent you need or you needed growing up. That was really my biggest motivation.
So I would like to remind everybody to please subscribe. This is a brand new channel. And if you find this content helpful, not only but please share it with somebody else who needs a good laugh about Mormonism or who just wants to learn more about why Mormon's Mormon and how.
And I would like to say too, that we have a lot of fun, but also we truly are people who were very, very deep in Mormonism. I had a lot of unique experiences being in, I guess, more leadership roles in the church. Megan has as well. I got to be privy to a lot of conversations that I think the average LDS person does not get to be part of. We've been in spaces that we've seen and heard and understand a lot of things that I truly think the average LDS person, doesn't get to see and hear and experience. And so we want to be able to shed light on those things as well, kind of a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, so we can really show what's going on, what are the conversations that are being had, and to laugh about it, because there are so many stories that are just absolutely ridiculous. And we have to laugh that we once not only participated in these things, but believed them and took it as normal, everyday things, and look back and I'm like, what the actual fuck was going on?
That's normal. That seems totally normal.
It's totally normal. I mean,
okay, well,
kids with poop brownies if they watch a rated R movie. That's a thing people do, right?
Right. That's totally normal. Feeding kids poop brownies. I do that all the time.
Right.
Well, let's go ahead and each plug our individual channels. Kirsten and I each have an individual channel. Mine is at _verse, which is the home of the Midlife Revolution podcast. It's everything at the intersection of healing from narcissism and true crime. And I also do one-on-one coaching from anybody for anyone who is deconstructing high demand religion or who needs help healing from narcissistic abuse, or just in general needs somebody to take a look at the outside of their life and see how I can help you take the next step to do the next thing that's going to make your life more peaceful.
Yes, and she's awesome at it. Not that I'm biased or anything. I'm just then my own channel, which hopefully will be up and running very soon when I actually post things. My is at casual.advice, CASHUAL.advice. I am in the financial industry. I want to go ahead and give career and money tips to people who maybe haven't been exposed to that sort of education, and just kind of give hope to those that are needing a little bit of a boost right now. I was a single mom leaving Mormonism, making $11 an hour, to now being a financial professional making six figures, and that was only in 5 years. So I want to go ahead and share all of that with you guys.
Love it. I want to come to you for advice, Kirsten.
Oh,
How about, do you have advice for people who went from making six figures to making zero because they got fired because their company got run into the ground by an idiot?
girl, I got you. I got all of the things. We're all, I mean, if nothing else, we are survivors. If you've been through Mormonism, like, you got this. There is nothing else that could be worse than that.
Oh man, so true. Well, I love you and thanks for everything.
I love you. I'm excited to be here and doing this with you. I wouldn't want to deconstruct all of this with anyone else.
Me either. I love it. And don't forget, everyone,
the Lord does not need your money.
Truer words have never been spoken.